Hi, I'm Heather Strader, and this is A Place of Yes. In each episode, we have honest conversations about grief, the messy parts, the unexpected moments, and the ways we begin to heal. Through heartfelt stories and expert advice, my hope is to offer you comfort, connection, and a reminder that you don't have to navigate this alone. Today, I'm joined by Elizabeth Klug, a mother, wife, and realtor whose story holds both profound heartbreak and deep resilience. Elizabeth and her husband are BRCA2 gene carriers, and they lost 2 of their 4 children to a rare genetic condition called Fanconi anemia. In this conversation, Elizabeth opens up about what it means to parent through grief, how her marriage survived unimaginable strain, and why she still proudly says she's a mom of 4. We talk about anger, guilt, advocacy, and the weight of knowing what most people try not to imagine. She also shares how her daughter Ruby is navigating life as the sibling who remembers, and how their youngest, Cohen, has brought light back into their home. It's raw, generous, and full of truth, and I'm grateful to share it with you. Today, I am here with Elizabeth Klug. She is a mother, a wife, a realtor, and like so many of the guests, a fellow griever. She lives in Wisconsin, and we were introduced by a season 2 guest of the show, Ashley Schneider, who thought that she'd be a great fit. And I have to say, sometimes I get recommendations and I talk to them and the connection isn't there. When Liz and I started talking, having never met, having never even knew each other existed, I felt like I found a friend. I feel like we are 2 people who have loss, but have made the very conscious decision to live our lives a certain way and to live alongside that loss. So Liz, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Heather. So glad to be here.
Before we get into it all, I wanted to start with our, season 3 question of something you said yes to recently. And it's always funny because when I first started, I thought it was easy. And now that I answer the question myself, it stumps me sometimes. I never quite know what I'm going to say. And today, I'm going to say that for me, sometimes, and definitely recently, what I've been saying yes to are really small things, because sometimes it just feels heavier, right? Like living with the loss, living with the way people around us know our loss. And I just had the 15-year anniversary that my son Jake died, and everybody knows that date. And I want people to know that date. I want people to remember him, to remember he was here. But it's also hard, right? Like it's just a hard time. So sometimes my yes is making the decision to just get out of bed and have my day, to be a mom to Ethan, to be a wife to Brian, to, I don't know, make myself happy, to just do what I need to do to get through it. So sometimes the yeses are not these big, like, yeses to lunches or dinners or jobs or anything exciting. Sometimes it's just a yes to keep going.
Yeah.
So that's my yes. What about you?
No, I could not agree more. I was going to be cliche and just say that I said yes to this podcast. Yay.
I love it.
I actually thought a little bit more thoroughly. And this past Saturday, as I mentioned, being in Wisconsin, it's bitterly cold here. It was minus 30 with the wind chill on Saturday. It was brutally cold. And I was invited to a Christmas party where there was a dress code, and it was in downtown Milwaukee. And I had told my mom about it, and she, being a widow, she says yes to every opportunity. She really embraces that because, you never know when your time is up here. And so she really wanted to go, and I was hemming and hawing, and I just didn't want to get out of my pajamas and put a dress on.
It's so hard sometimes.
It's so hard. And then children, well-attired children, could come. And so I told my daughter Ruby about it, and Ruby instantly said yes, and she wanted to dress up too. And I was thinking, well, I can't be the humbug, And so I said yes, and we made the trip out, and it turned out to be a wonderful evening, and I was able to spend time with 2 very important young ladies in my life, and I was grateful for that moment. Yeah.
It is funny because sometimes the best yeses, for lack of a better way of saying it, are the ones that you don't wanna say
I
yes to
know.
immediately,
Oh my
right? Like,
gosh. Yeah.
I definitely try to, because I like, my go-to, especially as I get older, is kind of I don't wanna say it's no, but I'm like I like, before the words come out of my mouth, in my head, like, in the craziness of my own head, I'm like, "It's too cold, I'm too busy, it's too" like, I have every excuse.
Totally.
But then just doing stuff is I
Yes.
don't know. It's important to get out. It's
Yes.
always I don't wanna say always, but it's most mostly worth the effort to do
Yes.
it,
Yes.
because there really is all the time in the world to stay in your pajamas on the couch.
I fight that all the
But
time.
I fight it constantly, especially when it's negative degrees out.
Yes.
But so good for you. Good for doing it.
Thank
And I it's a friendly reminder to anybody listening to sometimes pajamas are important, but sometimes getting out of them is good too.
Yes, we can do it.
So I'm hoping before like we get into the questions, if you could give, and this is kind of a loaded question because if you could give like a snapshot of your family and what you've been through, there's lot of things I want to hit, but I think like a good background for the audience, kind of a quick overview would be great. So if you don't mind.
Sure. Well, I am married to my husband, Dan, and we are the parents of 4 beautiful children. And 2 of them, unfortunately, have departed due to a life threatening genetic disease from my underlying BRCA2 gene mutation. So I am a BRCA2 gene carrier, mutated carrier. And unfortunately, my husband is too. And even though we did all of our due diligence with prior to conceiving children, uh, it didn't work out in our favor. And so we have experienced loss and we've experienced life and with the birth of 2 miraculous children, one through natural conception and the other one through IVF, through our own control. But we've been married, oh my goodness, 13 years roughly. So, and the fact that statistically speaking, typically, I think it's 90% of parents that experience the loss of one child will divorce. And trust me, we are not in a perfect marriage. Sometimes I just
Is
wanna
anybody?
no,
Yeah.
no. And he and I have both equally thrown around the word, the D word before in the past, but we've been able to get through it. How, I don't know. I don't know, but, um, we both know that we're better together, and here we are, and he works and I work, and we're just trying to raise 2 wonderful kids that hopefully, I cannot stress this enough, hopefully recognize that life is so fleeting and that they should be living not just for themselves or for me and my husband, but for their sisters that are no longer with us.
You know, you touched on so many things, and this wasn't even where I wanted to start, but I feel like I have to. Um, you know, I never know what that percentage is, right, of
Yeah,
marriages and,
I could be wrong.
that survive.
Yeah,
No, but it's
it's
high.
high.
It's like I never and I always throw out a number, and it's usually like 85, 95. I don't know what it
Right.
is, but I can tell you that most like, it's not often that there's people like us talking to each other
Correct.
that are married, right? Like, it's just impossibly hard.
Mhm.
And sometimes even during the illness, like, forget about the loss, like, just in
Oh,
that stage,
yeah.
and it's so hard.
Yeah.
And like you said, no marriage is perfect. Mine certainly isn't. And I just wanna share a little story because it's very, it kinda touches on everything you said. So, last week, there was a fundraiser for our organization, Jake's Help from Heaven, and unbeknownst to most people, my husband and I were, like, not a great place. We were, like it was it was the
15 anniversary.
anniversary, 15-year anniversary. We're both in our own heads, like, you kinda want things to be perfect, but, you annoy the shit out of each other, frankly. And we had, like, a 24-hour period where we were barely speaking. Meanwhile, here we're supposed to go put on a happy face, talk about Jake, like, see all these people, you know, do it. Like, just be great, and we were barely speaking. At the same time, a young girl who we work with through the organization, family that I knew very well, we've worked with since, like, 2016, the little girl passed away. And so all that is kinda happening at the same time. It just feels really heavy and whatever. So all of a sudden, I'm like, "We gotta get it together. We gotta go." And he said to me, he's like, "Yes." So I said, "I'm sorry." He said, "I'm sorry." Life went on. But then he said, "It's a big day." And I
Mm.
remember just thinking, and I said this, I said, "Every day's a big day because you never know when it's gonna end." And we know that so personally, like, we know that in our bones, right? Like, and not it's such a cliche to say, but people don't really know that. But I do think when you know it is as deeply as we do, that it does impact the way we live.
Right.
And I just, it's something we live with all the time. And I love that you kind of like, I want Ethan, my other son, to know that. And I get that you want your girls, because it's just
Yeah.
you watch people take life for granted, and I feel like it infuriates me more than it should,
Yes.
but it just does.
No.
We know inherently in our bones what it's like to live with loss, and it's so frustrating, at least for me, when other people don't. But one of the things, and I think we'll go right into this, because I with my story, and Brian and I have a great marriage. I really do, like, all of the things, right? Like, and I think we talked about this, in our introduction call, right? Like, there are so many times I wanna, like, kill my husband. Very few of it does it have to do with our losses. It has to do with just being a married couple. We've been married 21 years. It's a long time, some of the day to day. But I wanna talk a little bit about the fact that you are both carriers
Yeah.
and what that feels like.
Hmm.
Like, knowing that you guys passed on these genes, like, how and I don't mean to say that in any way, like, I'm
Oh,
trying to be really careful with my
don't
words,
be
like, 'cause
careful. You
I
could say it.
you
You could be
no,
very.
but, like, I don't want it to feel, like, very I mean, I don't want, because I know what that feels
Mhm.
like when people are like, "Well, why did that happen to Jake? What's wrong with Jake?" They're your kids, so you just wanna protect
Right.
them, but you also they're your kids, so you feel responsible.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So how do you guys navigate that? How do you personally and then as a couple, knowing that, I mean, is it better that you both contributed to it, or is it
I don't
uh,
know. I think I'd rather just beat myself up versus, like, trying to blame Dan when he has 50-50 stake in it just like me. I think what's so bitterly frustrating about what we've experienced, and I told you this when we first met, is that my husband graduated from college with a medical laboratory science degree. So he tests genes all the time, and this is his forte. This is what he knows. And when I got tested, so my father, uh, after he passed away, is when I finally went in to get tested to see if I uh, was a BRCA2 gene carrier. I apologize. My father died at the age of 58 from breast cancer, and he had a 2-year battle, and the doctors could not figure out where the cancer was originating from. And by the time they figured it out, it was too late. It had spread to his organs. His death sentence was established. And so we celebrated my father, and he passed away in our home with all of us with him. And I think a few months after, I got tested. And what do you know, when you have parents that are mutated gene carriers, forgive me, most likely offspring will have a 50% chance of getting it. And I have it. My brother, thank God, doesn't have it. So I'm the only one that we have to worry about. Um, and after my husband found out that I am a carrier and I would most likely experience the same fate as my father, he did his due diligence as well, because he knew his mother had breast cancer. And oh my goodness, if she is a carrier, there could be so many effects to our children. And he knew that before we decided to conceive. And like I said before, he wrote an email to his mother. I was copied on it. And he said, "Mom, I need you to go get tested, because if you are a carrier, we could both, and therefore he's a carrier, then we could both conceive children with Fanconi anemia, double BRCA2 gene mutation." She did not test positive for the gene mutation, and therefore we thought we had the green light to just have sex whenever we wanted. And sorry for being so
No, this is why I love this
yeah, okay, good.
conversation. I mean, I love this
Okay.
conversation, but, I mean, I wish that yeah, but,
Yay, we're married
I
and
mean, it's real. This is
yeah,
yeah,
like who nobody thinks about like you fall in love and you get married and you don't
yeah.
think about, oh, do we have mutated genes before we decide having kids?
No, of
Nobody
course
thinks
not.
about that.
Nobody
And the
does.
fact that my husband thought about that to me was so absurd. And so we conceived Mirabelle. Um, she was born without any physical deformities. The only underlying condition, if we even knew what to look for, was just her size. She was really tiny. I think she was like 5 pounds, 15 ounces, and I carried her full term. I still
But even that, like, some kids are
right,
just tiny.
tiny.
You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like,
it still hurt to push her out. Let's be honest here.
um,
She wasn't that big.
Jake was 8 pounds.
Oh
That
my
was
gosh. Oh my goodness. I've never, in all honesty, 4 times, I haven't had a 8-pound baby. I've only had 7-pounders. So anyway, congratulations to you. You're a stronger woman than I am.
You've done it 4 times, though.
There we go.
Yeah.
So we have Mirabelle and um, and then we had Ruby. They're 18 months apart, and Ruby came out more average. If you say I hate using the N word, the normal
Yep, yep.
stats. Um, but anyway, so it wasn't until, and I should send you the picture. I cringe every time I see it because it was after Mirabelle turned 2. She had a 2-year appointment where the doctor said she was fine. You could see her stomach starting to bulge out. And when my husband touched her tummy and realized how firm it was, he knew something was wrong. And then we went to the doctor. Of course, we were sent to Children's. What do you know? We find out it's a tumor. We thought it was highly curable, but they did genetic testing. And then come to find out, she has Fanconi anemia. And my husband wasn't in the room for that diagnosis. Only I was, but he was on the phone with the oncologist and he educated me after that appointment about what was to come with our children, with Mirabelle at that time, because we only had 2. But what could possibly happen with Ruby if she wasn't tested? So I guess, long story short, or at least this to answer your question, throughout the time of Mirabelle's treatment, knowing that my husband was a carrier, knowing that he did what he could and he still, it's not him, we still failed. I was so mad and angry and bitter and resentful, and I didn't love him anymore, and I wanted out, and like I wanted to wave the white flag and just start over. But that's not, you can't do that.
And you can't stay in that space forever anyways, like, you just can't. Yeah.
Exactly. So, I mean, and again, we can bounce all over the place. Obviously, while Mirabelle was receiving treatment, I decided, after so many doctors were telling me you should get a mammogram, I find out I have breast cancer. So I'm getting treatment. My daughter's getting treatment. My husband's still okay. He does his due diligence with his doctor annually to check markers and make sure there's nothing going on. We've had more scares with me. I guess he and I both try to do what we can to prevent the inevitable. I'm trying to live past 58. That's my goal. My dad died at
It's
50.
hard when you have, like, a number, right? Like,
Totally.
it's hard
Yeah.
when you have, because it's almost like I don't know, it feels like there's a sentence, like, it feels and you just wanna get past
Right.
that, and I think that's gotta be really hard. I I think your story is so it's so many things, right? Like, I just think about how careful, you know what I mean? Like we said earlier, most people do not go into their marriages thinking about any of the things that you guys thought about.
Right.
Do you know what I
Right.
mean? Like, it's just not typical thought
No.
process.
No.
Um, and I just I would be and this is you must hear this all the time, and sometimes I try to be really careful because 'cause I'm like, I say things that if people said to me, I'd wanna smack them, but then I hear them coming out of my mouth, so I'm like, "Well, what am I gonna do?"
Yeah.
But, like, I just feel like I'd be so mad, and I think the fact and you said it, you were so mad, and you kinda hate him, and I think that is so real, and I can totally imagine that. I also think about what you said when you said, you kind of wish it was just you. And I know that feeling, and I've talked about it because, like, when Jake did die, it was on my watch, right? Like, he was with me. And I have always said, and I will say it until I die, that I am so grateful for that because the only blame and not that there was blame or whatever, but it was on my watch, and I don't think I could ever forgive anybody else. Like, if it was my husband, a sitter, my parents, like, I could not get over it, and maybe I could, you know what I mean? Like, maybe I could, but I just still, all these years later, am grateful that I'm the only one that was on my watch,
Right.
and so I get that feeling of saying, like, you kinda wish
Yeah.
it was just your genes
Yep.
because then it's just an internal struggle
Correct.
as opposed to, like, a coexistence.
Correct. Now I have to share this pain with him. I don't wanna do that.
Well, no, because it's like you kind of are like, this is I don't know. It's the blame is
It's easier
but
to blame yourself or carry the burden yourself, or I would rather.
yeah,
And, now it's mutual. So and we went into the marriage. No, like, he knew what he was getting into. He knew who he was gonna
yeah,
marry,
yeah.
and he still married me. So, here we are.
So you end up with, so Mirabelle's about 2
Yes.
when you start to recognize that you're not out of the woods, that in fact there's something. And Ruby was already born?
Yes. So Ruby was a year and a half. She was 18 months when,
Okay.
uh, Mirabelle we found out about Mirabelle. So,
So how and I know you can't speak for her, so this is just a weird question, but I've been thinking since we spoke, I've been thinking about her so much because she was in between the 2 children you lost,
yeah.
and she was naturally conceived,
Yes.
but just the way genetics and genes are weird,
Right. Right.
has nothing,
She is
correct? Like
yes, she's a miracle child.
and
Yeah.
and that is
I
amazing because it's your daughter and it's awesome,
yes.
but there's gotta be something for her and maybe and I always say that we always can put these feelings on other people, but other people only know what they know. So this is her life, right? Like, maybe she doesn't have that, like, she doesn't know any different, like, she's just knows it. But how does she, like, care like, how does she go about her day? Like, when she's 11, 10
She's
now?
10.
How old is she?
She's 10.
She's 10.
Yes.
So how does it impact her,
I know that
if at all?
sure. No, she the older she gets, the less she remembers, right? So we show her pictures and show her movies and video and um I think that's painful just
For
naturally.
her?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
when things aren't going her way and she knows that she has 2 siblings that aren't here, uh, how sad she can be because she just wishes it could be different, as do I. Um, I know that she embraces her brother. They're 7 years apart. She embraces her brother as if not just a big sister, not just a friend, but that motherly component. She dotes on him. If I said that correctly.
No, 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 totally,
Yes.
yeah.
Um, and what's really peculiar about it is that she's a second-born child that kind of was pushed into this firstborn position, and I see some traits that she's adopted as a firstborn, but then I definitely see the second-born child in her. Um, but, I mean, she was there for both of their deaths. So the girls both passed away in our home. We didn't want them to die in the hospital.
Hospital.
So and even though she was so young, I'm she'll never forget them.
Mm.
Cohen, my son, won't doesn't know them.
He didn't know
Yeah,
them.
he sees pictures of Mirabelle and he says, "Oh, that's me." And I I kid you not, he is a spinning image of
Oh.
Mirabelle and Lilu. He looks just like them, and it's sweet when he says those things. And then when he has traits that come through, his personality traits are like them. That's just crazy to me. But I think I won't know how Ruby will do until she's an adult. Is that so weird to say?
No, well, I will tell you this, so Ethan and Jake were 15 months apart,
Yeah.
and Ethan, was 5, he was in kindergarten, and Jake's death was unexpected, he had a ton of medical challenges, but it was not there was no death sentence, there was no
Right.
diagnosis, so there was no real, um like, we didn't know it
Right.
was like, I had no idea, like, I woke up that morning, and I say this all the time, it was just a regular Wednesday, it was just a day,
Yeah.
and it was just a day for Ethan too, right? Like, and he as he got older, like, when he was right after it happened, he was very it was kinda I don't say cool, but it was kinda cool because he was still so young that he was kind of, like, in touch with some of his, um like, he'd be like, "Hey, ma, Jake's right there." I'd be like, "Oh, where?" And he'd be like, "Point to the ceiling." And I'd be like, "Oh, hey, Jake." But he wasn't afraid to say anything because he didn't know that what he was saying was kind of odd or, like, whatever. He believed his brother was right there, and he would it was just that age of just not being embarrassed of things, and then he went through all the ages, and similar to what you said, which made me think of all this, was I even now at 20 years old, he's gonna be 21 next month, he he doesn't have I think he has memories that are really stories we've told or pictures he's looked at repeatedly,
Mhm.
but I don't know how much he truly remembers.
Sure. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, and I mean, he wrote his college essay on being the one that had to call 911. So, like, there's definitely things that, there's a lot to unpack. And in that college essay, there were things that I was like, oh, wow. Like, I didn't, I guess I didn't know.
Right.
So you never know what they're going to keep with them or not keep with them. But they do, in my opinion, and I think you will see this with Ruby, I think there is an element of just maturity, and that doesn't at 16, you're gonna be like, "No, there's no maturity here at all."
I don't think there's
But
maturity right now, and there are a lot of
yeah.
people that think she's very mature for her age.
But there is this maybe maturity but, like, compassion or there's just this, their life experience is and that's why I always be careful to say, like, it's just all they know also. So there's not this, like, "Oh my god, you're a perfect child," but there is this piece of, like, just I don't know, I do think that Ethan carries himself through the world, and now that he is a young adult, there's pieces of it that I'm so proud of, and I don't wanna make it an excuse because he is who he is, and maybe it has nothing to do with his brother dying or nothing to do with Jake or nothing to do with our family experience. But I do think there's some part of it that he is coming through the other end as an adult, kind of in a cool way, if that makes sense.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So I say that to I don't know if it's for optimism or for, like, whatever, but because it is hard when you know your kid is living with just big, heavy losses and you want it's one thing when it's yourself or even your spouse because 'cause you're adults and you can figure it out,
Mhm.
but it's a lot on kids, and there's a lot out there about sibling loss, and, we only know our own loss, right?
Correct.
Like, I can talk at length about the loss of a kid and what that has done to me and my marriage and my life, but I can't put myself in Ethan's shoes, and I
Right.
just
No. What I recognize more often, or at least see a trend with Ruby, is that she will tell me when she finds out of another fellow student that has a similar path as her, a departed sibling of that student, or it's so sad, but lately I think there's 2 families that she knows of in school, at least for sure one, where the parent is going through cancer treatment, and, like, how she feels about that, because she knows that even though she was so young when it happened to me, I went through that, um, and I'm hopeful that those what she's picking up and what she's taking in will just at the end of the day make her a better human being, because I really, really hope that she does, because she and maybe I'm too hard on her, or I'm hard on myself, I'm hard on all of us, but because we've experienced 2 deaths of children, we need to set an example for other how people live their life, and that we have to be better human beings. Not just for ourselves, but for everybody else. So,
No, and you kind of are letting me segue into this other piece I wanted to talk about because there is this responsibility, I think, sometimes, right?
yes.
And that is kind of like what you're talking about. Like there is this responsibility for ourselves, but for our living children of how you carry yourself and how you handle things. And I sometimes hear myself talk and I feel like, okay, you're coming across like judgy or you're coming across holier than thou or any of those things. But I feel it so like deeply that there are choices, right? And people can say like, "Oh, I don't know how you do it," or "I can't imagine." And I'm like, "Well, you can
You
imagine
could think
because
about it.
yeah, like you can imagine. Like I imagine horrible things all the time."
All the
Like
time.
all the time.
Yeah.
Maybe because of my situation because I know they can happen,
Mhm.
but I mean, one of the hardest things I've had to deal with is managing my living child, right?
Yeah.
Managing the fear of losing my living child, I guess, is
Sure.
not managing him because that's just parenting, but 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 you know what I mean? Like, because I know it can happen. And right? You know this can happen, so it's not just this, "Oh, it'll happen to someone
Right.
else." When you're the one it happens to. So I do think we have to be better humans because we have to show people that you have to. It's like when Brian and I were in that fight. I'm like, "Yeah, we do have to." Like, why did we just waste 24 hours? "Oh, I hurt your feelings. Oh, you hurt my feelings." Blah, blah, blah. Like,
Bickering. Yeah.
yeah, like and not that that's not always gonna happen, of course it is, but figuring out how to live with that weight and move forward.
I've started to refrain on saying it because, 1, it sounds cold and harsh, but there have been moments where Ruby has disappointed me privately and in front of other people, and when I reached my breaking point, I will say, "You have 2 dead sisters, and how do you think that they would be. You have this life. You are living here right now. You need to behave better. You need to be a better person because your sisters can't. They're not here for that." And I've said that twice in front of people that they have no pain yet. And I think they definitely perceive me in the wrong light, or maybe just for that moment. And that's okay. But it's my own way of getting through what I have to get through. And I don't know how to there's nothing sugarcoaty about the death of your child at all. And so people can think that's harsh at times.
No, but it's real, right? Like,
Yeah,
I like there's nothing sugarcoaty about it. There's no way to make it less horrific, And it's one of the things on this show we talk about a lot, and it's one of the things that I constantly feel like I need to work through even 15 years later,
right.
is people are like, "Okay, I wanna know exactly what to say," or, "I wanna know, how to feel better because 'cause I've had this happen," and I guess it's kind of my vibe too, like, there is I can get through life, right? Like, and
Mhm.
I can my guest that I talked to that the episode that came out last week, he talks about, like, you can only have these high highs if you let yourself feel the lows,
Correct.
and I love that. I mean, because I think it's really true, and I think it doesn't just have to be about loss, right? Like, these people who just coast through life, I don't know, like, maybe you protect yourself from the sadness, but you also keep yourself from the joys, right?
Right.
But there is a complexity to that, and there's a balance to that because our lows, I think, can get pretty, and I'm not talking mental health, I'm not talking, like, depression of, like, you know, anybody who has a diagnosed illness, like, I'm not trying to be, like, I'm not trying to tell everyone to buck up, but I do think that there is this piece of, like, you have to let yourself feel it, and, I've told my friends a couple, like, this past stretch has been difficult for me, and December 5th was, like, this Friday, and I had stuff to do before we got out of town for the weekend, for the anniversary date or whatnot, which I've started just calling the death day because I feel
Yes.
like anniversary gives, like, a little lightness to it, and I'm like, "There's no lightness to it. It is the death day."
Yes.
And not everybody takes that really well. They just look at me like I'm a lunatic. But I'm like, it is what it is. But, and I had, like, 2 meltdowns. Like, I'm not a meltdowny kinda girl. Like, I am not a, like, throw a tantrum, cry. Like, I usually just go about my way.
Right.
It was, like, before 8 AM, I had 2 of them. Like, lost my shit, like, cried, like, wasn't in a good space. But I started sharing that with a few people because I think we have to share all the parts of it.
Yeah.
And not just the happy conversations on the not that these are happy conversations, but the conversations that show that you can make your way through grief and whatever. Like, I just think there is this harsh reality of our lives, and whether it comes off on saying that to Ruby or to Ethan, like, I've said similar things, like, "You are blessed with life." Jake
Correct.
wasn't.
Yes.
Jake died when he was 4. Like, life is a gift.
Correct.
I have said those things, and I think it's the truth, right? Like, it is the truth, and I think, you know a lot of people don't understand it, and good for them that they don't.
Right. They get to have more of an ease at this time in their life versus
Yeah.
us. So, and it's funny you said, where the words are when people know that I'm grieving, what could they say? And sometimes you don't have to say anything at all. I'm okay. You don't have to find the words. I mean, I've had some people just look at me and they'll just embrace me for, a couple seconds. And that's all I need because I don't need them to tell me or give me the answers because they don't know. They don't know my pain.
I I've often said too that sometimes it's like a heart emoji on a text or something,
Yeah.
right? Like, it's not it doesn't have to be you don't have to chat GPT me
No.
a like, it's just the idea of you can send me something that's like thinking of Jake today, or it can be the heart. It can just be. I have one friend who created, like, because I always talk about cardinals and Jake and whatnot. I have one friend who created somehow, she's more gifted than I am with technology, but, like, has made this little, like, cardinal emoji. So
Mm,
every once in a while, she'll just send it to me, and it does 2 things. It makes me smile,
yes.
and it makes me think that she's thinking of Jake because that is a huge thing with child loss, right?
Yeah.
And I actually wanna be cognizant of this because I've talked a lot about Mirabelle and not any about
I
Lilu,
know.
so I wanna do that next, right?
Yeah.
Because what is our biggest fear, or at least my biggest fear is, the biggest fear already happened, right? Our children died.
Yeah.
But then you don't ever want people to forget them, and I have a hard time with that sometimes, right? Like, you wanna the same way I talk about Ethan, I feel like I have to balance it.
Right. Right.
So let's talk a little bit about Lilu, because now I wanna balance
Yes. Yeah.
it.
I know. It's uh with respect to Lilu, I'll at least start with this. And I said this again when we first spoke, is that the universe may have been giving me some grace with losing Lilu, where we didn't have to go through a year's worth of pain to try to save her, even though we knew that it's not going to necessarily help her due to her diagnosis. And she was given 2 weeks to live and she lived for 3. And the reason why Lilu was born is because after Mirabelle died, there were 2 things that I did right after she passed away. But, well, 3 things. One, I grieved her loss and I continue to grieve her loss. And the second thing was I joined a parenting group because it was a blur with Ruby. I don't know what proper parenting she was given versus not, but I said I need to raise a child and I don't know how to do it anymore because I've just been around
It's so different.
cancer treatment and death. That's all I know. So let's try to raise a great human being in Ruby. And then the third thing was, I want Ruby to not be alone in this world, because if I'm going to statistically live as long as my father, I have 18 years left on this earth. And that's not enough for me to give Ruby support. And can she get that in a sibling? Like, I just didn't want her to be alone. So we tried IVF. I actually did. Because of me being a breast cancer survivor, I was able to get like a scholarship or a stipend through, oh my goodness, what is that cyclist's name?
Lance Armstrong.
Thank you. My husband would kill me if he heard this. He's so mad at me. I mean, he is a Tour de France lover. He went to the Tour de France last year.
Well, that's probably why you blocked it. You're like,
I know.
I
don't want to. Yeah. Maybe I'm just mad because even though Lance Armstrong gave me a certain amount of money to go through IVF because of my cancer, it didn't work. It failed. And I was mad. And so what do married couples do when they're mad? You know? Sorry. We decided to have one night of, whatever you want to call it. Anyway. And we'll
call it sex.
Sure. Okay, great. Unprotected.
In case somebody's listening saying, what are they talking about?
Good point.
I want to spell it out for them.
Got it. It was unprotected sex, and I got pregnant right away. And I thought, oh my goodness, this is it. This is my request. I guess you call it a prayer. My prayer is answered. I am pregnant. I am going to give Ruby a sibling, and it's going to be okay. And of course, while I was pregnant, the doctors were already noting the baby's size and her being smaller. And they wanted me to, in my opinion, become their lab rat. They wanted me in the office every 2 weeks doing ultrasound scans. They wanted me to test her in the womb. And that would have been, there's an element of
too much information, maybe.
Correct. Because at the end of the day, if no matter, and this is not a plug for anybody, it's just me, I could not make the decision to terminate. I thought for some reason there would be a miracle that would happen.
Did you almost think that there was no chance it could happen twice?
Correct. Yes. Even though my husband gave me the statistics, and we would probably, the odds were against us. But I said, no, that can't be me. Nope. Even though
I'll be the exception.
I will be the exception of the rule. No, it doesn't work out that way. So, and again, I had touched on this earlier, that typically children with Fanconi anemia, it can have physical deformities. And because Lilu she was snuggled in so tightly, we could never get a good view of her limbs, of her hands, her fingers, her toes. And so she came into this world, and we were so excited. We were so happy. And I was so happy to have her. And my husband was on her. That's so quick. He was counting all of her limbs. He started with her toes, and then he went up to her hands, and he saw a double thumb on her left hand. And he knew.
So he knew.
I saw him go pale, go white, like a ghost. And he couldn't handle it. He did not sleep with me. Well, in the hospital room that evening, he had to go home and be alone. And that's fine. I knew why he had to be alone. Sorry, go ahead.
No, that moment, right? Like, typically, from the majority of people listening to this show and who we talk to, they talk about childbirth, right? And it is this moment, and you've experienced this as well, right? Like,
totally.
When it's just pure joy and holy shit, we created this human.
Yes.
And it's just this, like, you're literally beaming from the inside out.
Yes.
And to have that
taken away
experience be taken away for both of you, for you because you saw his face, for him for just even knowing that he had to, before he could even like hug and embrace his child, would have to count, you know what I mean? Like,
Right. Yes.
that's,
He loved on her for the time
of
that he was there,
course.
of course. And we did all of the things, but he left that night, and
Yeah.
I was fine with that because I needed to be alone with her.
Because you probably did too, right? Yeah.
Absolutely. And what was the most heartbreaking is that I don't think the medical staff truly understood, one, my husband's intelligence, and two, our history. They had
And your understanding of what it meant.
correct. They had no idea. They just thought he was being vain. I had one doctor come in and she said, "Well, in my culture, it's a sign of good luck." Well, she's going to need a lot of fucking luck because she's going to die. And she did. And she died younger than her statistics. Statistically, and there are different degrees of FA. My kids have the worst kind or had the worst kind. And um their average lifespan is 3 to 5 years. Mirabelle lasted 3 months after her 3rd birthday, and Lulu didn't. Lulu lasted as long as she was in me. She lived here for 10 months, and I should have known better. Should have known. We were so focused on her sight because actually Mirabelle had cataracts. That's another implication of FA, and so we were constantly looking at her eyes, so focused on her sight because we thought that that was the first thing to go because that's all we knew. And Lilu started crawling, but she had her head tilted and she wouldn't straighten out this slant. And I shouldn't have asked anybody because people were just
Yeah.
talking, like brushing it off. I shouldn't have done that. But then
It's so hard though, because sometimes you want, like, even though you know,
yeah.
you want someone to give you something different.
Correct. I want different news, just
Yeah.
different news. And we had obviously, after she was birthed, we did the genetic testing. Even though we knew she had FA, we got the diagnosis. Actually, I was with Ashley Schneider, was in my home when I got the call of Lilu's diagnosis, and I just lost my shit. And all of the kids were there, and we're all together. And here's Ashley trying to comfort me. And she did a great job. But anyway,
Ugh.
Lilu starts crawling, but her head's tilted. And she's not taking any, at that point, because I'm a breast cancer survivor, I cannot feed her from my chest. So I had one of my old school friends. We grew up together from elementary school through college, or not college. Forgive me, high school. Sorry. She donated her breast milk, but I didn't have enough, so
Okay.
I was doing
Mixing it with it. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Or supplementing, I guess they call
supplement,
it.
yes. And Lilu stopped taking it. She was vomiting and crying. She's hungry, but she's vomiting, and we just didn't know. And we went to the doctors. We went to Children's Hospital ER, and they did every single test under the sun. And here I am pacing. I'm angry because the doctors don't know. And finally, we're like, we got to get out of here. And we had to sign a waiver. Like, we are leaving. They didn't want us to leave.
Yeah.
Like, well, you're not answering any of my questions, so why should I be here?
Why
right
am
now?
I here?
Why am I
Yeah.
here? And as soon as we get home, Dan starts doing his thing and he's researching, just like he did Mirabelle. He knew the night that he felt her tumor, he knew what it was. He knew it was a Wilms tumor. We just didn't know it had spread. And with Lilu, he's like, they tested everything except for her head. They did not do an MRI on her head. And the next morning we called. We didn't go through the ER. We called the oncologists that took care of Mirabelle, and they did what they could, or what they did everything to line it up because, gosh
To
darn
push it through or get it done.
yeah, he knew. And what do you know? And she has a
That
brain
is
tumor.
so.
Brain tumor.
I mean, and that is one of the things that, like, and I don't ever know how to say this quite right, but like, I do feel like our medical profession and in some ways they're remarkable. So I don't mean to like bash doctors. I
Correct.
don't mean to
No.
bash any of it. But there is this piece where it's just, there is an element where parents will know their kids best. They know what they're dealing with best. And it's just so hard, right? Because I was a little bit like, I don't have any medical research background, but like all of a sudden, our son Jake, he was healthy, 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 had this twitch of his arm, then never was the same. Like literally, we were at Boston Children's for 117 days and what, like, discharged from there with zero answers. No idea what happened, no idea what changed his life, no real way to handle it, like no, nothing, like absolutely nothing.
Right.
And I just remember I was always at like, how can this be? Like, how can this be? So I became like like his own advocate, right? Like I was like Googling everything, or I would be like, hey, and I'd have to take notes and remember everything. And my husband would write everything down. And we just did it ourselves a little bit, and it's just, I don't know. Like I think about your story and I think about your husband knowing, and I think about that moment when Lilu was born and maybe there are no answers, but I just feel like
Right.
there's gotta be more. Like we've got to hold the standard up higher, I think.
Yes. Yes. And and of course, just like you, we have friends that are doctors and they're amazing physicians, and I don't take their intelligence away. I wish I was like them. But maybe it's a good thing that I'm not like them because I wouldn't be married to my husband because at the end of the day, opposites attract and I am nothing
Yeah.
like my husband.
No.
But he was always just like one step ahead of them. And it just reinforces that it takes the family and the medical physicians to
Yeah.
be able to come together.
Working together.
Right. But at the end of the day, you are your best advocate, not for your own health, but just for even your children's health.
Yep.
Yeah. So,
I want to talk now a little bit because I wrote this down and I'm going to read it because in that like survey where I kind of have, guests fill out like just,
yeah.
a little like bio and stuff. You wrote something. I just loved what you wrote. So I always love that you say, you still say I have 4 children. And I
Yeah.
want to talk about that because I have recently had some experiences that I feel like so uncomfortable with myself for how I
Mhm.
answered it. But I want to read what you wrote. You said, I will always say that I am a mother of 4 children. I don't talk about them for people to pity me. I talk about them because I want their spirit to live on. If I can't have that, then I might as well be dead.
Yeah.
And I love that. Like I think that is um like I love like even when you wrote like I'm a mother of 4 amazing children and you wrote their ages of what they are.
Correct.
Like not, and I'm processing all of that because I'm going to share this story and I want to pick your brain about it honestly because I struggle with this. And I've talked about it before, but recently I've done this more times than I'm comfortable with. So you meet people, right? And they'll say, "How many kids do you have?"
Oh, yeah.
And I I have gotten myself in situations, like, especially when Jake first passed that were actually, when Jake first passed, I think I had no filter, so I was always like, 2, 1 alive, 1 dead. Like, I would just
Totally went through that. Yes.
yeah, like, just,
Yes.
like, make people cry in the grocery store kinda stuff because
Correct.
no filter.
Correct.
Then I recognized that I was inflicting, like, uncomfort and, like, discomfort and pain on people, and that's not really my ultimate goal either, so I would refrain and I'd come up with other things or and then I'd end up in weird things, so I went through this whole phase there where I kept Jake at 4, but, like, Ethan was always, like so then it was just weird too because 'cause I'd be like, "Oh, I have a 16-year-old and a 4-year-old." Weird, like, so I never quite knew. So more recently, we were traveling with some people, and it just kept coming up, "Oh, talk to me about your kids, talk to me about your kids," and I just said, "I have 1."
Mm.
Just said 1, and Brian would kinda look at me sometimes because he was kinda like so then, like, Brian would answer, and he often would, like, be a little not a little, a lot more eloquent than I was, and was like, "Oh, we have a son who's a junior at Syracuse. We also have a son who passed away." Like, he would just because I think he was feeling so uncomfortable, and I don't know that because we didn't talk about it, but I feel like he was feeling uncomfortable with my just blatant lying. Um, and then I feel guilty because I feel like here I am, this person who is always talking about keeping Jake's memory alive. And I run an organization in his name and I do all this work in his name and I have a grief podcast because of his loss. But yet, when asked a month ago, not even years ago, like a month ago, I said one. And I read yours and it resonated with me. It struck a chord. And I don't know, how do you do it? I love it. I love that you do that. But I am so out of habit right now of saying I have two boys, a 20-year-old and a 19-year-old.
It was funny because I went to the gym this morning, and at the end of the gym session, I was next to a new member of the gym, and she and I are rowing. And of course, the question came up like, "Oh, do you have kids?" And I said, "Yeah, 4." And she's like, "Oh my goodness, that household must be so busy and so hectic and all that." And I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, because it is even with 2."
Yep.
She, we didn't, whether it was time because there was a lack of time to really dive into it or not. Um, we didn't, I didn't touch on, their ages and what actually happened to Mirabelle and Lilu. We didn't get into that, but there were members that were rowing next to us that they know, and they were quiet, and that's fine because I loved that moment because there were people that know my story a little bit more than that member will, and she'll learn at some point
Yep.
when
Yep.
she's with me more
Yep.
often. But I will always say 4, and they usually remark about, "Wow, you must be so busy, blah, blah, blah." And of course I say yes, because I am.
Yep.
And then it goes back and forth with, well, whoever I'm talking to, they'll talk about their kids' names and their ages. And that's when I say, well, my firstborn child is Mirabelle. She turns 11 in January. She passed away at the age of 3. I have Ruby, and she's 10, and she is a healthy child. She should be just fine, except for, these other random things that could occur, right? And then there's Lilu, who, oh my goodness, she turns 7 in November so her birthday is on All Saints Day on November 1st. El
Okay.
Dia de los Muertos.
Yep.
Which, how fitting, right, for her to have that birthday. But she passed away as well. And then I have Cohen, who's 3, and he's a genetic miracle. And I'm just so glad that I'm able to talk about them. And I don't say it just like that all the time, but I'm always reassuring the person that I'm talking to that I'm not trying to cause you pain or make you feel sad. I love talking about my children, all of them, even the ones that aren't here.
I love that so much, and I will say this, I always talk about this show having this component where people can get a takeaway, right? So even if you're not
Absolutely.
living with loss and all of that, like, you can hear these things and it can impact how you go out in the world and how you, the words you say and the things you choose and, like, just a takeaway. This is my takeaway because I loved it when I read it. I love the way you just walk through that as, like, an example because that's a true, like, as you're doing it, I was like, "This is how I can do this. This gives me the language and the" like, I'm gonna have to practice, like, when people do it, because it's easier to just look like a weirdo and say one, and I'm sure people are like, "I've just been talking to this person forever, and she's sort of normal and social and gregarious, and all of a sudden now she looks like death took her over," which it sort of did. Bad choice of words.
No. You?
But, like, I literally freeze and answer weird, and then the conversation gets awkward because I have just made it awkward, but I think you answered that and modeled that for me in such a way that I'm gonna try it.
I love
I will
that.
let you know how it works.
Yes, you keep me posted. Absolutely.
It it's such a beautiful way to do it, and I will tell you, it rips my heart out every time I say one,
I bet it does.
but it's where I've ended up now, and, I just no, so thank you for that.
You're welcome.
One of the last things I wanna talk a little bit about is and we've kind of it's been an ongoing theme throughout this whole conversation, but it's that whole idea of repeated loss. And it's something, you've even referenced with, like, the loss of your father young. like, I feel like there's even a whole other show here about talking about just the way you've referenced, like, your own mortality
Yes.
and living with that number and living with this, you know, there's part of me that thinks we should all live our lives like that a little bit, right? Because you would not waste your time with the bullshit. You would just ha have a clear vision of what is important and, like, your eye on the prize more
Mm.
than I think most people typically do. Um, but what do people get wrong about the idea of repeated loss? Or, you know, I know I'm asking like 27 questions, but, um, you know, it's what do people get wrong about it? Like, what do people say wrong? Or what do they, you know, and that's a weird question because again, I don't often think that people are malicious or
No,
malintended, you
no,
know, but
no.
it doesn't mean that their words don't hurt, right? It
Oh,
doesn't mean
of course. Well, yeah, I guess it goes back to how I handle grief versus my husband handles grief. Um, After Mirabelle died, Dan and I grieved very differently. He needed to be in his thoughts. He needed to have his time, whether that's alone or just with Ruby or with extended family members and Ruby. He wanted to have that bond, or just reestablishing bonds. And not that I don't want to reestablish bond or be close to family and friends. I do. I thrive on that. But I just had to start I hate to say it, grinding away. Like, I had to just keep moving. And Mirabelle died in the middle of the night. Um, I held her. We would rock back and forth. We listened to music. We wouldn't let her go until maybe the early morning. And then when she was, taken, and then I'm in my house with my family, I just remember sitting on the couch exhausted. I can't cry anymore. And I look at my sister-in-law and I said, let's paint. I just need to do something. And we painted the entire house, floor to ceiling, just in a lighter, brighter color. I just needed light to shine through my house. And what I realize and what I've learned is that I can never judge how people grieve. I can't, I'm not going to do it
yeah.
because the pain that they feel, they're going to react and respond to it in whatever way they want to. And I'm going to respect that. And and I just want people to respect my choices on how I grieve. And no one's judged me. If anything, people found out I was painting the house, and I had at one point like 20 people in my house helping me
Love that.
paint because those were the people that didn't know what to do, didn't know what to
But there's
say,
something. Yep.
and they just wanted to do it. And that's what I appreciate. It's so I push through my grief. How do I live beyond my two losses? I talk about my children, but when I get too into my thoughts, too close to the dark side, I just keep grinding away at whether it's taking care of the kids or trying to be busy or working. I put a lot of my outlet on my pain is definitely work. My husband, I'm sure, would agree with that. But I cannot reaffirm that to those people out there that maybe haven't experienced something quite like what we've gone through. You don't have to say any words at all. Because I think the biggest pain that I received post death for both of them is that they're in a better place. And sure, sure. You say that to, like, when your parent or your grandparent dies at the age of,
When they're 90.
yes, say that in that context, but don't make me feel like I'm a bad mother. Don't make me feel like I've been penalized, that I've done something wrong in life, and this is what I have as as a penalty, because I took that as a
Yep.
penalty. My
I
kids,
same.
yeah, yeah. And so because of that, because I realized that not everybody in my circle or outer sphere, so to speak, has the right words or the right context to make me feel rest assured, is that I have to push through my grief and I have to keep staying busy. And I will always try to be like a happy Liz. And I want to be happy. Don't get me wrong. it's not good to be sad all the time, but if you don't have the right words to say, don't say anything at all.
Don't say it. And I love that story. I love the painting story because I
Yeah,
do think it's so important for people to hear, and I love how you said you will never judge how someone grieves
ever.
because even, even all these people who make these livings out of talking about grief, like, there's still this implication that there's a right or wrong way to do it.
Correct.
And I hate it even all these years later when someone says something that makes me feel like, "Wait, I'm doing this wrong?" Like, "No, I'm not doing this wrong. I'm doing it the way that I need to do it."
Correct.
And I love that, and I almost feel like I said, I feel like there's so many more things I would love to talk to you about, but I feel like that is such a great, like, way to end this conversation, and maybe we will have to have this conversation again because I do think there's so much, there's so much to talk about, but I'm so grateful for you for sharing this story,
Thank
your
you.
story,
Yes.
um, for giving me a way to talk about Jake in a way that I think I can try to do in a way that doesn't make me feel horrible or make someone else feel horrible.
Yes.
And I have so much like love and respect for the way that you are handling it all. And it goes without saying, I am sorry for your loss, right? Like it sucks to have to bury your children. Like there's no way around that. But I love the way that you are raising Ruby and Cohen, and I just feel so attached to Ruby because I just I feel that with Ethan, right? Like there's heaviness for being the alive sibling.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
and that it gives them a unique perspective, but it makes them, in my mind, extra special.
Absolutely.
Um, so thank you for having this conversation with me.
Of course.
Thank you for listening to A Place of Yes. I hope today's conversation brought you comfort, connection, maybe even a little bit of hope. If it did, I'd love for you to subscribe and share this episode with someone who might need it too. See you next time on A Place of Yes.